Hi, Ashok. Are you there? Okay, let's get started. I will myself read the the first message before we start on to discourses. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. The three of Meher Baba's favorite couplets of Hafiz, a mystical Persian poet. The first one, befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. The second one, about what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong, because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. Third one, I am slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Hafiz. So, with that, let's get to finding out where we are in our journey. So, we are at the point of in, the, in understanding God and the pillar of God. So, we finished God and the individual perfection, search for God, the stages of the path, and from the stages of the path, the next logical unit that we complete is arriving at self knowledge, right? So arriving at self knowledge is so before that, what we learned in the stages of the path was very beautiful. We ended the discussion with understanding the planes. We went back to what we learned in wayfarers, and overall it was a good way of internalizing and also revisiting some of the things that we learned in earlier book readings and, of course, in discourses before. So, with that, let us now take the next chapter, which is arriving at self knowledge. So, I'll just add another one. Let's So let's just read the subtitles before we get to the actual reading. Jai Baba Sanjay ji, long time.
Yeah, Jai Baba Karthik.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
All right. Okay, good.
Jai Baba.
So I was just reading the paragraph headings before getting into the read. Ashok jumped out and he's back now, I think. Ashok, you're there?
Yeah, Jai Baba. Sorry, there's some issue. I don't know. Jai Baba, maybe Baba's wish.
Okay.
Good morning, Jai Baba to everybody. Sanjay.
Good
Jai
morning,
Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
I can't see the screen, but somehow.
Oh, really? Sanjay ji, you can see, right?
Yes, I can.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. You want to just log in and log out so that it fixes that
Okay.
problem?
Yeah.
Um,
Have you had done started the session or?
yeah, we started. We've already we finished the message reading. I'm just
Okay.
reading the essence of the chapter and then getting to the chapter itself.
I think you're just referring. Then I can see the screen. I can see that the Trello board or yes.
Okay, fine. So, progress towards self-knowledge is gradual and imperceptible. There is a typo here. Scope of consciousness and its working. Average person only conscious of the gross world. Then identification with physical body, identification with subtle body, identification with the mental body. Then there is a section on need for a master, direct self-knowledge. Then false self-knowledge is a temporary substitute. And then there's an analogy or a story, the pumpkin story. And the analogy is actually extended by analogy is made explicit. So what we saw as the stations, the asmans, the steps in the previous chapter, as far as the spiritual journey is concerned, we'll now get to actually understanding how you get to the destination. That's the focus of this reading today. So with that, let's get to where we were. Here we are. So arriving at self-knowledge. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Ashok, are you in a position to read or should I?
Yeah, okay, I'll start.
Please.
Jai Baba, arriving at self-knowledge, progress towards self-knowledge, gradual and imperceptible. That's the topic. When the time is ripe, the advancement of a person towards self-knowledge comes about as naturally as the physical body of a child grows into full-fledged form. The growth of the physical body is worked out by the operation of natural laws, and the progress of the aspirant toward self knowledge is worked out by the operation of spiritual laws pertaining to the transformation and emancipation of consciousness. The physical body of a child grows very gradually and almost imperceptibly, and the same is true of the spiritual progress of a person once he has entered the path. The child does not know how its physical body grows. In the same way, the aspirant also is often can you raise it? Yeah. Uh, is often oblivious of the law by which he makes headway toward the destination of his spiritual progress. The aspirant is generally conscious of the manner in which he has been responding to the diverse situations in life, but rarely conscious of the manner in which he makes progress towards self knowledge. Without consciously knowing it, the aspirant is gradually arriving at self knowledge by traversing the inner path through his joys and sorrows, his happiness and suffering, his successes and failures, his efforts and rest, and through his moments of clear perception and harmonized will, as well as the moments of confusion and conflict. These are manifestations of the diverse sanskaras.
Actually, can you read that line again? That line is
Yeah,
very
yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely. I will.
The,
And
yeah.
there are a lot of diverse.
In fact, we can even discuss it. It's covered very beautifully. Please.
Absolutely. I'll read it again. I thought as much.
Sure.
Uh, Without consciously knowing it, the aspirant is gradually arriving at self knowledge by traversing the inner path through his joys and sorrows, his happiness and suffering, his successes and failures, his efforts and rest, and through his moments of clear perception and harmonized will, as well as the moments of confusion and conflict. Wow, this is really a lot of power packed content in this.
Correct. So, but actually, if you look at it, it covers the entire spectrum of emotions and experiences that one has as we go through life. And there is obviously the play of the opposites. Everything is opposites that are shared here: joys and sorrows, happiness and suffering, successes and failures, efforts and rest. So, periods of activity, periods of rest, and moments. And this is beautiful: moments of clear perception and harmonized will. So, when we go through a process of discovery, process of understanding, process of analysis, sometimes we understand very well and the will is harmonized. Whereas there's also times of confusion and conflict. So I think quite an interesting canvas of possibilities that is laid out. But in all this canvas of possibilities, without consciously knowing, the aspirant is actually moving towards self-knowledge. That's the point that's being made.
Yeah, yeah. He may not know about it, but he is traversing.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Any other points, or we can continue?
Sanjay.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are the manifestations of the diverse sanskaras that he has brought from the past, and the aspirant forges his way toward self knowledge through the tangles of the sanskaras, like the traveler threading his way through a wild and thick forest. Scope of consciousness and its working. I think there's a typo, S should be double anyway. Human consciousness might be compared to a flashlight that reveals the existence and nature of things. The province illuminated by this flashlight is defined by the medium through which it works. Just as a person confined to a boat can wander anywhere on the surface of the water, but can have no access to remote places on the land or in the air. The actual working of the flashlight of consciousness is determined by the accumulated sanskaras, just as the course of the rivulets flowing down a mountain is determined by the channels created by the natural contours of the mountain. In the
So
case,
what's being said here? So there are two examples that are given. The flashlight actually appears multiple places in discourses. So here he says the province illuminated by this flashlight is defined by the medium through which it works. Just as a person, so it's not very clear. I don't know. The flashlight analogy is not explained in this paragraph, but the other analogy is very, very good. Just as a person confined to a boat can wander anywhere on the surface of the water, but can have no access to remote places or on land or in the air. So, what scope of consciousness does is basically sets the context. So, scope of consciousness in this analogy is like the water. So, I mean, it's like the boat, sorry, so, right? So, because the boat is in water, I can only experience the things that are in the domain of, I mean, in the field of that, in water, right? So, I can't come off and explore deserts. I can't explore forests. I can't explore stuff like that, right? So, that's what I'm understanding. Is that right?
yeah, but there's also, if you read the next line, it has got a connection with the analogy of the flashlight. So I'll just read that last line again and then
Sure.
we'll discuss. The actual working of the flashlight of consciousness is determined by accumulated sanskaras. This is important.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
So, so this
just
is
as the course of rivulets flowing down a mountain is determined by the channels created by the natural contours of the mountain. Yeah, you're saying something. Sorry.
yeah. This is the why of it, right? So why you're in a boat, why I am in a car is determined by sanskaras. Why
Yes.
your scope of consciousness is larger, my scope of consciousness is lesser, hypothetically, is largely driven by sanskaras, right? So that's the why of it. But the scope of consciousness that's being mentioned here, I think now that Ashish is here, I'll give a very programming example, engineering example. Scope, it's basically scope of the variable. So when you indulge in programming, you set variables, right? And then the variables have those values during the scope of the functioning of the program, right? So you set things like that. So you know what I mean, right, Ashish? So in that sense, the sanskaras determine what is the level of scope of consciousness that you can experience. That is whether you can experience water, whether you, I mean, what level of what kind of experiences you are exposed to, and then you
Right.
go to.
Maybe global variable and local variable. Global
Correct,
scope
correct,
means like
something like that. Yeah, something like
many,
that.
many births, and local variable means that only that particular birth. Something like that.
Yeah, the global variable are sanskaras, right? And then you set specific local variables in your program. Anyway, let's not
And
confuse.
Karthik, no, just one sec. It also could be that there are certain natural sanskaras which are already predetermined, like the channels created by the natural contours of the mountain. So that is something which is already, you know, they are the natural sanskaras in the process of evolution, right? It could also refer to that, the natural sanskaras which is already been, which is a channel already determined, and later on you can also add to that the unnatural sanskaras, and also that the different strokes for different folks. I mean, because everybody has got his own uh, journey.
True. So again, just to be specific, there's no distinction that's made out between that whether it's natural or unnatural. All sanskaras are basically those ondulations or the contours of the mountain that decide how the water flows. So the water flows based on the pits, the valleys, the roots that are created in the past, or in the that's the sanskaric framework that's being said. That can be of two types, like you rightly said. It could be natural and it could be unnatural. So, yeah, I think let's continue if everybody's okay.
Yeah. Average person only conscious of gross world. In the case of an average person, the sphere of life and the stage of action are restricted to the gross world because in him the flashlight of consciousness falls on the physical body and works through it. Being restricted to the medium of gross body, he can be conscious of anything within the gross world, but is unable to establish contact with subtle or mental realities. The gross sphere thus constitutes the arena of the average individual, and all his activities and thoughts have a tendency to be directed toward the gross objects that are accessible to him. During this time, he remains unconscious of the subtle and mental spheres of existence, since the flashlight of his consciousness cannot be focused through the medium of the subtle or the mental body. So,
So now the flashlight and scope of consciousness is being unveiled. I mean, the analogy is clearer, isn't it? So when the flashlight is pointed at the gross domain, the gross world, our exposure is only to the gross objects, right? And that's the average person. The average person enjoys all the things that are in the gross world, is able to experience only the gross sphere, and he's not conscious of mental spheres. Why he's not conscious? He's not having the flashlight showing that in his scope of consciousness. And yeah, that's it. Right? This is clear.
yeah, this is clear. And it's something like that we're on stage, and there are three different characters or three different worlds, and the flashlight or this or uh, the stage light is only on the gross world, so to say.
Correct. Jai Baba Neha ji, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
Jai Baba,
Jai Baba. Yes.
absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jai Baba. Please continue, Ashok ji.
Yeah. Identification with physical body. At this stage, the soul is conscious of the gross world, but is completely ignorant of its true nature. It identifies itself with the gross body on which the flashlight of consciousness falls, and this naturally becomes the base for all activities within its range. The soul does not directly know itself through itself, but by the means of the physical body. And since all the knowledge it can gather through the physical body points to the physical body itself as the center of activities. It knows itself as being the physical body, which in fact is only its instrument. The soul therefore imagines itself to be a man or woman, young or old, and takes upon itself the changes and limitations of the body. After several rounds of lives in the setting given by the gross world, the impressions connected with the gross world become weak through the long duration of the experience of opposites like great happiness and intense suffering. The subtopic here is identification with subtle body. The weakening of the impressions is the beginning of spiritual awakening, which consists in the gradual withdrawal of the flashlight of consciousness from the allurements of the gross world. Should I read this again?
Yeah,
The,
please go ahead.
the weakening of the impressions is the beginning of spiritual awakening, which consists in the gradual withdrawal of the flashlight of consciousness from the allurements of the gross world. When this happens, the gross impressions become subtle, facilitating and inducting the soul's transference of the base of conscious functioning from the gross body to the subtle body.
Facilitating and inducing the soul's transference from the base of conscious functioning, transference of the base of conscious functioning from the gross body to the subtle body. So now
Correct.
our focus is changing from the gross to the subtle.
So there is a progression, or uh, in the in the framework. I mean, there is a progression from gross to subtle. So that's uh, an improvement in our journey.
So by the way, I have a logistics question. Maybe each time we read discourses, we should read a unannotated version, or should we read an annotated version? Because are we being biased by what's already highlighted?
No, not necessary. No, no,
Something
no,
to
no,
think about. Something to
no, no.
think about.
No, I think we already have, the in the annotated version, we have already put some, effort. This is the third or the fourth reading, so I mean,
Anyway, that's a side question.
yes,
But
side question.
that's a side question. We need not spend time on it. Anyway, so the other thing that I observe is when we go from the gross world, the reason we go is the impressions become weak. Why? Due to the experience of opposites like like great happiness and intense suffering. So that slowly weakens the impressions, and then that as the weakening of impressions happens, your scope of consciousness transfers to the subtle world. So yeah.
Jai Meher Baba.
Yeah, Nehaji.
This is very beautifully given in God Speaks also in first chapter. And now, as Baba has explained this, we as a spiritual being, we don't need to go through this suffering or this happiness or to understand or go through the entire process to shift from gross to subtle. you know we can make our own shift. We can try, and like we go more to samadhi or to be with Baba, reading Baba's books. So the gross body, when you start your day, you start your day with subah utھ ke kya khana hai, or anything which is related with body. So there is the gross world is big, is immense. There are many worlds in gross world, and people spend million years in that. So how to remove is the only way we can do it, that how we spend our day. So if morning we sit for Baba samadhi, for Baba prayers, for 2 hours we give to Baba, you know instead of for 2 hours we are going to the gym, doing exercise, associated with those kind of people who talks about body. what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
these are the simple, to rectify your, to just to change your system. When we talk too much about food, even people talk about, oh, I'm taking salad nowadays, or I'm doing this diet. This is also all body related things. So if you are a simple cook at home, or you are in master chef, you all are in gross body. It is all gross body. So
True.
too much into physical, too much into, so being a Baba lover, being a spiritual being, we can shift this gross to subtle by not doing or minimize things which are related with body needs.
Correct.
So
But
as
then
as
that process
as we
is, yeah.
as we
Go ahead.
cut down, if we cut
Mhm.
down this 50% at least from our side, the rest will karma, it comes as a karma, come as a, incidents in your life or happenings in your life. Even those things, you realize you're so free, my God. Nothing is happening. Those sort of things have stopped happening in your life. You have stopped meeting those kind of people in your life. So this is a beautiful steps which Baba had explained, how to, from subtle, and even from subtle to mental. And even there is no need to if you are with Baba all the time, it is you just connect to Baba then, and you
True.
are on a very different level altogether. So this is so beautiful. This is, you know mm, many groups, many big spiritual groups, they eventually leads to creative visualizations. We
Mhm.
are getting car, we pray to Baba, and we their Baba, and we got this, and we got, so this is again,
Gross.
you are you're talking about spirituality, but you are going towards the materialistic world and materialistic things. So Baba, the way Baba has designed this, and Baba has explained this, is extremely important, and it's a very, it's a shortcut. It's we are very fortunate that Baba had explained this to us in God Speaks, also in Discourses, and again about the gross body and how to remove your sanskaras, and from gross to subtle, and from subtle to mental, so all the worlds, and how to get away from that. So this is all very profound, and one can, if you look at your monthly chart, if you make your monthly chart, your yearly chart, so you'll realize that, one can realize that, that progress is happening. So this is a good way from our side. I mean, at least we can make efforts to do that, and rest Baba will take care of it. So this is really
Yeah.
huge. This is
Yeah.
very important.
I, I think that's why there is a lot of importance on seclusion, keeping silence, fasting,
Absolute,
so
absolutely
keep us
right.
away from this thing. But I
Yes,
also
yes.
think Baba has also mentioned too much of focus of keeping yourself away from things, but you're
Mm.
mentally there, you're mentally thinking of food but keeping fast. So that aspect also has to be kept in mind. So
Slowly,
it
gradually
does
goes
not,
away.
yeah, it has. So the
It
natural
takes
process
time.
is,
It takes time.
yeah,
The
that,
process,
yeah,
even
yeah,
again, that's a
yeah.
process.
So yeah, so the natural process is, as Baba has said, falling in love with him. Once if you fall in love with
Mm.
him and keep him in constant remembrance, all this,
Yes.
मैंने क्या पहना हुआ है, मैंने क्या आज खाया, कि क्या
Uh,
शाम को खाऊंगा, all those thoughts which
secondary.
slowly
Become
wither
secondary.
away in any case, as you get deeper and deeper into constant remembrance of him. These things, मैंने
Hmm.
चप्पल मेरी मैच हो रही है कि नहीं हो रही है ड्रेस से, all that things will, whatever is available, you just go on
Hmm.
and on and on. So so
Hmm. Hmm.
these are the
Hmm.
other aspects of what you just said. Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
सारे rules बाबा ने बता दिए. We have everything. It's only for us to uh,
Just
pick up
have to
the right,
follow.
yeah, pick up the right cues, pick up the right rule book, apply it on
Yes.
a day-to-day detail level. आज सुबह का, कल, रात
Hmm.
को, whatever, all the time, be able to
Hmm.
apply this in our day-to-day life. We have all the
Yes.
framework and rules. Obviously, Baba has not made it simple. He has given it in multiple places. He has given it in multiple contexts and frames of reference. So there is a role for the mind. आपको काम करना है. You have to do some work to unravel it, and for which you need a, like Sanjay said, start loving him. B, even before that, recognition of the true values of life, which I think the reason that we are here on a Sunday morning on this call, I think all of us recognize the deeper purpose of life, and that we need to move away from just gross consciousness. So we have to first make that move. Second, start loving him. And third, slowly start bringing all the stuff that he has said into our lives, and we'll make better human beings and better souls. And I'm sure that we'll make progress in this birth.
Jai Baba. Amen.
Hey, Baba. Yeah. Um Ashok, now the
Yeah,
flashlight.
yeah. Now the flashlight of consciousness falls on the subtle body and works through it as its medium, no longer working through the gross body. Therefore, the whole gross world drops from consciousness of the soul and it becomes conscious only of the subtle world. The subtle sphere of existence now constitutes the context of its life, and the soul now considers itself to be the subtle body, which becomes and is seen to be the center of all its activities. Even when the soul has thus become subtle conscious, it remains ignorant of its own true nature, since it cannot know itself directly through itself, but only by means of the subtle body. However, the change of the stage of action from the gross to the subtle sphere of existence is of considerable significance. In the subtle sphere, the conventional standards of the gross world are replaced by new standards that are nearer the truth, and a new mode of life is rendered possible by the drawing by I'm beg your pardon, by the dawning of new powers and a release of spiritual energy. Life in the subtle world is only a passing phase in the spiritual journey and is far from being the goal. But out of millions of gross conscious souls, only a rare one is capable of becoming subtle conscious.
Okay, so few of us make that switch.
See, even understanding that that's the path or just first step is so important. It is
Correct.
huge. It is so huge,
And
you
rare.
know.
So,
And from animal to human form, and in human form, because human has those tendencies to subside those things and move towards the subtle world. It's itself in a progress. It's a huge
absolutely.
progress if you just move towards that. And rest Baba pulls you, and you can make your own effort also. You have to make your own effort. If you are a spiritual being, you can't just leave it, it will happen. No, you have to make your own efforts also. So slowly and gradually one can see the situations around, the people around you, everything, everything changes to
Correct.
absolutely 180 degree or whatever you say. So it's so beautiful. From subtle to mental, one can see the difference. And coming to Baba, to be with Baba in Baba's fold, that's why uh, there are simple things like if you give time to gardening. Gardening is something which has no karmic. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
uh, Something which these things which to be with animals, You're doing some social causes also, you are doing for the world also, you are involved also, but on the other hand, you are not doing any, you are not creating new karmic. So one has to plan. If you plan a little around, see, family is a must. That's Baba said, never shrink your responsibility, shirk your responsibility. That's the first thing. But somewhere on the line, if we are cautious about our moves, we can spend 50% of the day without creating any karmic, or 70%, or if the situation comes, try to avoid that. Baba has said it, avoid the situation, which I was reading somewhere. Try to get away from that situation.
Yeah,
When
so intelligent action and
yeah,
inaction, right? So
intelligence.
yeah,
Yes, absolutely. That helps a lot. Helps a lot.
and all the good stuff that you explained about selfless action, right? So action
Yes.
where you're not trying to create new sanskaras because they are not associated with your personal ego, but let's be warned that it should not uh, boost the ego. So you should not be thinking, oh, I have the best garden in my community. Whoa, wow, this plant grows very well because it's my green thumb, right? So as long as
Yes.
that is not there, then yes,
Uh,
you're on the good job. Your approach is better than focusing on gross objects and gross achievements.
Absolutely, Karthik.
Yeah.
We should not fuel the ego. Can you just come back, go a
Yeah.
little back a few lines?
So
It says that life in the subtle world is only a passing phase, and out of the millions, only rare one is capable of becoming subtle conscious. So this reminds me of the analogy of the pyramid climbers. So, if gross is the base of the pyramid, and then slowly, lesser people are passing
Get
from
to
gross
subtle.
to subtle to mental, and ultimate the to the self and God realization. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
yeah.
let's
your
con-
So yeah.
Baramangala Center, they have created this on mural. These all the steps of all the worlds, which is really very beautiful. So subtle
yes.
world. What subtle world contains, Karthik? Could you answer me that?
Yeah. So the subtle world contains experiences which include sights, it includes smells, and it includes sounds, which are very, very special, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Baba uses the word, they could be allurements. So they can give you the feeling that they, they are an end in itself. They are a destination itself, and also along with these experiences, you also get powers, right? So you also be are able to do things which you are not able to do in the gross world. Is that the answer you're looking for?
No. Yes, yes. Yeah, you are right. What you are saying is right.
Hmm.
This is what Baba said. But when we shift from gross, we know what is gross is all about. We're very clear about it.
Sure.
But Baba has never explained, when one is in subtle body, what kind of life he needs to lead. So, because we are leading a normal life, or whoever. So, what is the difference? There has to be a difference between, to identify the work, or
Yeah.
the way, which creates the subtle world. I think the musicians, the singers, or poet, they all come into the category of subtle world. because they don't function the way the gross world people think, or gross world people imagine, or gross world people, their feelings or their thought process are very refined, very refined.
Well,
So
I wouldn't say
Yeah, but
all
not
artists,
that,
but
not
some
less.
artists. Yeah, but
I need
yeah,
to crack this.
Yeah,
I need to
they
crack
they
this.
they need.
And
Yeah,
to
they
understand,
need
I'm
not
asking this
be.
question to many people. I have asked Cyrus Khambata also. I'm asking this to many people. How it looks like, how subtle world look like. I want to know about subtle world. What kind of people and what they do, their daily routine. I would like to know their daily routine.
See, one thing is it is very difficult to find because they are rarest of the rare. And those people who
No,
have subtle powers,
it is
yeah, one thing. See, the
not rare of
musicians and artists, yes,
the
they have maybe a glimpse of it because the subtle world powers and beauty and smells and sound are beyond the comprehension of the gross body, which we think that it is a very fine music, but that's it's still in the gross form.
correct.
And when somebody is in a subtle form, he need not be, he'll still be a gross body, but his consciousness is controlled at the subtle level where he has unlimited power. He has, he can create things out of nowhere. He can raise the dead, and all that powers are with him. He has a smell and the sounds of celestial sound, as we say, Nada Brahma sounds, we said, which are not available in the gross body. That he is able to hear, that he is able to smell, and that he has the powers. So all the sounds that we hear from the musicians and various artists, string instruments, that's only a very feeble shadow of something which is only can give an idea. But we are still in the gross world. Even these people are also in the gross world. But I mean, for an example, it is right. Okay, they're the sounds. So because music is a sound, then we go to gross world. That's another level of music which is not available in the gross world. That's what is my understanding. Yeah, Baba.
I think just to differentiate between the gross world and the subtle world, your experiences of you know s- hearing, smelling, eating, sleeping, etc., are there in the gross sphere or the gross world, and then we have the experience only of seeing, smelling, and hearing in the subtle world. I think that's a one major difference between your journey of progression, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult to our common mind or to our common
Right.
intellectual mind to
See,
differentiate between who's in
uh,
the subtle world and who's in the gross world. I think that's quite
correct.
a.
So for us, like gross eyes, we are able to see only up to the horizon, right? But a subtle body person who has the vision, he can see anywhere actually. Sitting here, he can see anything around the world, and around the universe, maybe. And all the whole creation is visible to him as he is seeing it from his gross eyes. So that is what is the subtle world actually. Yeah, Baba.
And then now we go to the mental body, and there we have only the experience of seeing and the seeing of God. I think that's when the first time when you can see. So we'll continue,
Please,
Karthik
please,
Sai.
please, please, please,
Yeah,
please.
the
Yeah.
next subtopic is,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sure.
yeah, sure. Uh, Identification with mental body, the subtopic. Impressions connected with the subtle world get worn out in turn through, for instance, some forms of penance or yoga. This facilitates and brings about a further withdrawal of consciousness inwardly, whereby the flashlight of consciousness comes to be focused on the mental body and begins to function through it. The severance of the conscious connection with the subtle and gross body means that the gross and subtle spheres of existence become completely excluded from the scope of consciousness. The soul is now conscious of the mental world, which affords deeper possibilities for spiritual understanding and a clearer perception of the ultimate truth. In this new setting of the mental sphere, the soul enjoys continuous inspiration, deep insight, and unfailing intuition, and it is in direct contact with spiritual reality. Although it is in direct contact with God, the soul does not see itself as God, since it cannot know itself directly through itself, but only through the medium of the individual mind. It knows itself by means of the individual mind and considers itself to be the individual mind, for it sees the individual mind as being the base and center of all its activities. Although the soul is now much closer to God than in the gross or subtle spheres, it is still enclosed in the world of shadow, and it continues to feel separate from God owing to the veil created by the impressions connected with the mental sphere. The flashlight of consciousness is functioning through the limitation of the individual mind and does not therefore yield the knowledge of the soul as it is in itself. Though the soul has not yet realized itself as being God, its life in the mental sphere of existence constitutes a tremendous advance beyond the stage of the subtle sphere. Out of millions of subtle conscious souls, only a rare one can establish contact with the mental sphere of existence.
So do you agree with the arithmetic here? So million out of millions of gross conscious souls, a rare few become subtle conscious. So what should we say that number is? Thousands, hundreds, whatever. I don't know, right? But then here,
It is a different time frame. The time Baba Avtaric time has started. So I think this is need to go. The gross body, subtle. There will be many people who will be aware of subtle body and how this functions. This will be a very common thing in future.
yeah, the spiritual push that
Yeah,
God is
agreed.
giving.
Number of people in subtle and mental worlds are increasing when God visits. Yeah, correct.
Correct.
Yes,
Especially in
yes, and
the
it is already happening.
correct. But my question is more, as I said, arithmetical. So if you have millions leading to a few hundreds or thousands, then you say out of millions of subtle conscious souls, only a rare one can establish conscious contact with the mental sphere of existence. Arguably, I believe that there are not at any time millions of subtle conscious souls. There are only few thousands of subtle conscious souls and maybe hundreds of mental conscious souls. I don't know. I'm just speculating here because I don't think there are millions of subtle conscious souls in the creative universe as we speak. But having said that, I agree with both what Nehaji and Sanjay ji said, which is the overall numbers are much higher with the in the period of the Advent, right?
Okay,
Yes.
Karthik, in God
That's why
speaks.
there are always wars. Even in time of Rama, in time of
Yeah. Yes.
Krishna, and now in time of Baba also there were two world wars, right? So there are a lot of gross bodies which you know moved into the process. Actually, let me not say what was the process, but actually they moved on, from one to another, passed through intense suffering and all that, and that must have given them emancipation to further progress on the spiritual path. Yeah.
Correct. Perfect. I think I agree with you. Ashok, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was referring to the number of 7,000, that functioning spiritual hierarchy. So is that sort of
Yeah.
is that sort of a core, body, and there could be many more people in the fifth and sixth plane. Is that what you're saying? I'm a little confused now.
No. So that's where I'm coming with my assumption. I'm coming with my assumption that if your end state as God speaks says, is advanced souls will be 7,000. So if you come one level below subtle conscious souls, you don't need millions of subtle conscious souls for you to get a few to the mental consciousness. But I may be wrong, right? So,
Jai Meher Baba.
So
Whatever my understanding is, Baba has his own office.
mhm.
And these are the numbers which Baba had given in God Speaks. Yes, even I used to think in a similar way what Karthik said. But recently, I feel that it is more about Baba's work, how he functions, and the number of people he needs to for his avataric work. It is, but there are many other groups, or you can say, they are also evolving. It is not that only those who are connected with Meher Baba or those who are coming to Meherabad, only those people are evolving. They may be stuck at somewhere, they need to come to Avatar eventually. uh, but somewhere these are the people, or this is the number of his hierarchy, how
Right.
Avatar, it is his, how he functions. So these numbers somehow uh, must have some reason, but number, as the actual number is much higher now, much higher now. And it is going to move. People are going to move from gross to subtle, and people are going to move from subtle to mental world, and it is going to happen in this another 10-20 years. But they can't live in gross body. They won't be able to survive. So we
Interesting.
can
So
this
numbers are going up.
trying to understand these things. I'm actually asking all the questions again now. So I was very convinced. Now I'm breaking my old patterns. I'm breaking my old shelf. So similarly, about the subtle world, about all these things, I'm asking again. So I'm trying to confuse myself more.
Sure. Be careful.
mm,
Yes.
Unravel. Stick to Baba and and
Yeah,
believe
Baba,
in intuition.
100%.
Believe
Absolutely.
Oh,
in intuition.
absolutely,
Yeah.
Baba.
so, so for me, I give a corporate world example is I just need to see how I'm functioning in my company. How does Mukesh Bhai's chairman office works is, I mean, it's just good to know, but ultimately it's what I am doing. So it's important actually.
Yes,
Good one.
yes.
So
Good
that
one.
way,
This is
yeah.
a good way to think.
Yeah. So it's just,
Yeah, it's academic knowledge, but you're focused on what I need to do from 9 to 5, and focus on that.
correct, correct, correct.
Do the best so that I get progress. And
Yeah.
in the corporate world, it's material progress or professional progress. In the
Yeah.
spiritual world, it's spiritual progress.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also spiritual progress in corporate world. How you are treating with people, and how you are interacting with people. So nothing is exclusive.
Exactly. Exactly. No, no, no,
Nothing is
no. So
exclusive.
Baba has very
Yeah. So it's
clearly said,
always
right?
there. Yeah.
Spirituality is not something
Which can be
in
taken
the
away from life.
mountains. Yes, yes. It's
Yeah.
it's about putting all those in practice. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Correct. Correct.
Perfect.
Correct.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that. Yes, Ashoki.
Yes. The need for a master. It is possible for an aspirant to rise to the mental sphere of existence through his own unaided efforts, but dropping the mental body amounts to the surrenderance of individual existence. This last and all important step cannot be taken except through the help of a perfect master who is himself God realized. Out of millions of souls who are conscious of the mental sphere, only a rare one can withdraw the flashlight of consciousness from the individual mind. Such withdrawal implies the complete vanishing of the last traces of impressions connected with the mental life of the soul. When the flashlight of consciousness is no longer centered upon any of the three bodies. It serves the purpose of reflecting the true nature of the soul.
So, this again brings the same phraseology. Out of millions of souls who are conscious of the mental sphere, only a rare one can withdraw the flashlight of consciousness from the individual mind. So, here, my problem with the phraseology is I am more thinking like what you're saying, Ashok, which is there is a pyramid. So you have the billions. The obviously human form is the starting point. So you have the 8 billion in the bottom, and then you have 7,000 at the top, topmost of part of the pyramid. So I don't think you can have millions at every level, but then I think the I mean, the words of C.D. Deshmukh here are more to be taken in a general sense than in a specific sense. That's my humble. Uh, uh, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Karthik, I just want to say, when he says out of millions, out of a large, uh,
exactly. I mean, he's focusing on the fact that the pyramid or the filter is very very specific. So he's trying to say that the chance of you making progress from one to the other is very very low. So that's the point he's trying to make when he's saying that out of millions there is only a few rare. So in each stage he's saying the same thing. Out of the millions of gross, few go to subtle. Out of the millions of subtle, few go to the mental, right? And out of the few mental that actually make it to God realization through the help of a master.
the
So,
grace of the perfect
so
master.
Karthik, does it not discourages you, or
Oh, no,
it's
I mean
just, I
that
mean, do you ever get a feeling that it's so damn got that difficult, so why to pursue, So I get that kind of feeling, when we always discuss this rarity angle of spiritual progress.
so
Does it
I
encourages you, or
remember,
so I use
I
the pass.
remember
I use the pass. Do you see what I'm showing? This is
yeah?
the pass. So you can
Bhauji once said,
no,
Babaji,
no,
Yes, yes,
Bhauji
Nehaji,
yes,
said,
yes.
before that, to answer Sanjay's question, this is the pass. This is the golden pass. So either you can get worried and get daunted by the numbers, or you say, this is the pass. The pass is given by
Yeah,
Baba.
yeah.
So if you
That's
remember
correct.
him,
Yeah.
if you love him, and if you do it, the numbers don't matter. He'll take care of us,
We
right?
Baba is confusing us.
yes, this is our time, time.
Baba.
Anything can happen. Jai Baba.
Absolutely. So with every breath in you say ba, and breath
Uh,
out baba.
correct,
So
correct,
नाम स्मरण करते रहने का बस.
correct. And so if you do it in the last, then you're done. So I know it's easier said than done, but you have a pass. He's giving you an option. Option hai. Yeah, Nehaji, you were saying something about bhav.
What happens after, like you said, right? At the end, if you take then the
It's fine.
Baba's
It's
name,
fine. It's fine.
you
Correct.
goes to Baba, you goes to Baba. But what happens exactly? You get to the realization, God realization, or you goes on some certain level. What happens exactly?
So you basically are not stuck in uh, the the s- the complicated process and the process of numbers which are against you. So you go veiled and go with Baba and make spiritual progress. That's what I understand. Let's read that again. No harm. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now on. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments. Now, the key part to answer your question is here, right? Comes to me. That those who take my name at the time of breathing is last comes to me. Now, what is coming to me? Uh, the whole purpose of life is to discover true nature and reach divine union. Divine union is going to Baba, going and recognizing our inner loving self and becoming one with Him. So, my reading of this situation is, of this statement is, I am able to reach that exalted state of God realization in a veiled manner without having to go through the multifarious experiences of the multiple worlds, and then the multiple planes of consciousness, and then all of that. Without that, I'll be able to be taken veiled directly to divine union. That's what I take away. What do the others think?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a cheat code, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. This, this is
Promo
a
code.
fast track. If you can't
Promo code.
ask me, you can call it a cheat code, or this is a fast track, as you said, where you go veiled and you don't go through the entire phases of all the these levels,
Yeah.
gross,
So ऐसा होता है ना,
subtle,
you have situations, where there is a procedure for everybody in the organization, right?
Correct.
so you can call
I
this as
think
a
for some
hotline,
reason, yeah,
hotline of fast
like
track.
I think I love the promo code cheat code analogy, right? So you can go through paying 100% to a particular service or product, or use a cheat code. Everything changes; it becomes free, or it becomes 50% discount, whatever discount, right? So it's a
Correct.
shortcut. Yeah,
Yes, yes. So in the organizations also you have procedures for everything, but you have good contacts with somebody, you can sail through that bureaucracy of the organization. So it's like that.
correct. You make one call, you send
Yeah,
one
yeah,
email, everything gets done.
correct. You know the right people around the organization. You can move things. But there are
What I
procedures in the
feel,
organization.
what what I feel like that you don't get the realization directly. You will need to go to the same way, but only the Baba will be helping you in each and every path, or like
Correct,
Baba will be guiding you.
correct.
That's what is happening. That's what I feel.
So the reason why I feel that I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, Baba himself has said that he cannot break the divine law, right? He can only give you the strength, the inner strength to face up to all your sanskaras. But he has also said in multiple places that he can take you veiled. So I believe that he can take us veiled through this experience rather than having to go through the experience without his help, right? So that's the way I read it.
Yeah,
Okay.
one story was remaining. The Bauji's story. Bauji's story was
Yes,
going on.
yes. Nehaji.
See, these are two, three different topics which we have. Anyway, Bhauji once said that there will be a time uh, comes when the plants remain plants, the animal will remain animals. There will be no progress, there will be no evolution. And that's why Avatar has to come down to create this progress, this entire progress. So, whatever Baba said, Baba has not discussed anywhere about the future. Very rarely. Very rarely. So, in God Speaks also, whatever he discussed or whatever numbers he has given for that till that time, for that certain evolution period. But he is going to increase. Everything is going to increase. It is going to expand in another 100 years, 200. God Speaks is going to be there in the library or in somewhere. So the number, I'm sure this is not the same numbers or same. So this is for us, for his mandli to understand how this functions, how, to understand the basics, how this basics functions. If you read God Speaks, it's a manuscript. It's just it just gives you makes you understand how how everything functions. These are just the glimpses, or you suggest stepping stones or whatever. This is just basics. The actually story is huge. It is immense. So we need to break that also. It is time to need to you know take some dangerous steps to understand how, because Baba is running very fast. Baba is running very fast, and the disciples are very humble and very बच्चा है, हम लोग कहीं लगते नहीं हैं. So if we are having this concept that as we'll take Baba's name and we will directly go to the seventh plane and eighth planes after death, we'll just directly go to Baba, and this is just a very hypothetical, or a very you know I really don't want to discuss nowadays, because I'm not talking what I used to talk 5 years before. I used to talk by book, but now I'm not. So that is it. That is it. I don't want to talk more. Thank you, Baba.
Hey, interesting. Animals will be animals. Yeah, Ashok, direct self-knowledge. I think you're reading the whole chapter, but I know we did it slowly, so I think we can finish. We'll try to finish this chapter today, please.
Okay. Direct self-knowledge. The soul now has direct knowledge of itself without being dependent upon any medium, seeing itself not as some finite body, but as infinite God, and knowing itself to be the only reality. In this major crisis in the life of the soul, there is complete severance of connection with all three bodies. Since consciousness of the different spheres of existence is directly dependent upon the corresponding bodies, the soul is now entirely oblivious of the whole universe. The flashlight of consciousness is no longer focused upon anything foreign or external, but is turned upon the soul itself. The soul is now truly self conscious and has arrived at self knowledge, both S in capital, self conscious and self knowledge.
So you are now oblivious to the whole universe and focusing on yourself. That's what happens. Your smallest self, but then you slowly move towards getting the consciousness of the big S self.
Yes. False self knowledge, a temporary substitute. The process of arriving at self knowledge throughout the three spheres of existence is attended by the acquisition of false self knowledge, consisting in identification with the gross or the subtle or mental body according to the stage of progress. This is due to the
Stage of
initial,
the process. Stage of the
according to the
process.
stage of the process, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
According to the stage of process. This is due to the initial purpose of creation, which is to make the soul self conscious. The soul cannot have true self knowledge except at the end of the spiritual journey, and all the intermediate forms of false self knowledge are, as it were, temporary substitutes for true self knowledge. There are They are mistakes necessary in the attempt to arrive at true self knowledge.
So there's a very important point being made here. So if you look at the false identifications that the soul experiences in its journey, there are multiple false identifications, and each time the identification is strong and solid. So before one gets into the spiritual path, we feel the body is it, right? So we live our lives thinking that is it. But then slowly you get recognition of you identify with the true values and then move away from body consciousness, right? So in that same way, the false you can have the risk of false self knowledge at multiple places, but there is only one true self knowledge that's there at the end. That's the point that's being made here. Yeah.
Uh, since the flashlight,
Yeah,
from there,
please.
uh, since the flashlight of consciousness is turned throughout the journey toward the objects of the environment and not upon the soul itself, the soul has a tendency to become so engrossed in these objects that is that it is almost completely oblivious of its own existence and nature. This danger of utter and unrelieved self forgetfulness is counterbalanced by the self affirmation of the soul by means of the three bodies, which happen to be used as the focal points of the flash of consciousness. Thus, the soul knows itself as its own bodies and knows other souls as their bodies, thereby sustaining a world of duality where there is sex, competition, aggression, jealousy, mutual fear, and self centered exclusive ambition. Health, self knowledge of the soul by means of any external sign is a source of untold confusion, complication, and entanglement.
I
So
like
here
the
they
line. I like the line or the phrase here. Focal points of the flashlight of consciousness. So I think consciousness is not defined anywhere by Baba, but then the flashlight is the best way to remember what is consciousness. Yeah, does anybody wants to try to define what is consciousness? What is consciousness? It's very difficult to put it in words, right? I've thought about it since this was asked sometime back in one of the meetings, and it's not easy. It's not easy to define it. But then the best way to understand it is the use of the flashlight example. So it's that, and I thought the phrase of focal points of the flashlight of consciousness is a good way of understanding where the consciousness is focused on, and hence that aspect or that world is where we belong. We belong to gross, you belong to subtle or mental, depending on the focal length of that flashlight. Right. So it's just a good analogy. Yeah. So it's
the pumpkin story.
yeah.
This form of ignorance may be illustrated by means of the famous pumpkin story referred to by the Persian poet Jami in one of his couplets. Once upon a time, there was an absent minded man who had no equal in forgetting things, even his own identity. He had an intelligent and trusted friend who wanted to help him to remember himself. This friend attached a pumpkin to his neck and said, "Now listen, old man, one day you might completely lose yourself and not know who you are. Therefore, as a sign, I tie this pumpkin around your neck so that every morning when you wake up, you will see the
1 second. Yeah.
pumpkin and know it is you who are there." Every day, the absent minded man saw the pumpkin upon waking in the morning and said to himself, "I am not lost." After some time, when he had become used to self identification through the pumpkin, the friend asked a stranger to remain with the absent minded man and take the pumpkin from his neck during his sleep and tie it around his own neck. The stranger did this, and when the absent minded man woke up in the morning, he did not see the pumpkin around his neck. So he said to himself, "I am lost." Then he saw the pumpkin on the other man's neck and said to him, "You are me, but then who am I?" This pumpkin story offers This pumpkin story offers an analogy to the different forms of false self knowledge growing through identification with one of the bodies. To know oneself as the body is like knowing oneself by means of the pumpkin. Subtopic analogy made explicit. The disturbance caused by ceasing to identify with the gross, subtle, or mental body is comparable to the confusion of the absent minded man when he could no longer see the pumpkin around his neck. The beginnings of a dissolution of the sense of duality are equivalent to the man's identification of himself as the stranger who wore his pumpkin. Further, if the absent minded man in this story were to learn to know himself through himself independently of any external sign, his self knowledge would be comparable to the true self knowledge of the soul, which, after ceasing to identify with the three bodies, knows itself to be none other than infinite God. Arriving at such self knowledge is the very goal of creation. Wow,
Interesting analogy, right? It's a very deep analogy. The
yes.
Yeah,
story.
very interesting. Yes, very
Yeah,
interesting story.
yeah. So the you
Actually, our entire life, everyone has one character we take, and we like to
identify as that.
identify ourselves or introduce ourselves with that. And so, at the time of retirement, I have seen people, they feel so lost
Identity is
because,
lost.
yes, it's gone. Now, what is next? Nothing.
Correct.
But that's the time they actually got released from
They lose.
this false
They
burden.
lose a pumpkin. So
Pumpkin,
the
yes.
pumpkin was, I am a manager in X. I am a
I'm
whatever,
a
right? And
father,
that
I'm a
pumpkin
mother,
is
I'm a
lost
sister,
when
I'm a
I retire.
daughter.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
all these are pumpkins which we need to
Get rid
take
of.
it away.
It's a beautiful
Get rid
analogy.
of, or
Yeah.
you can remove it, and from the far away prospect you can see that, and okay, this pumpkin is doing its job better without me.
Correct.
So with distance also, you can, yes, as a mother, I have to do this. As a father, this is my job. So if we create the distance between these two identities, or our real self and the identity which we, in the world for world, it is really very helpful, because it makes you a better person. It makes you get mature and you understand yourself well, because then you're not glued to it, and you're not judgmental, and see things from the top angle, and not from
Yeah, yeah.
you are not very involved anywhere.
Correct,
So
correct.
it
Yeah, it
it
makes
helps.
you humble
It's
actually. What is the
oh,
title is just a
oh,
pumpkin around my
oh,
neck.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
make beautiful.
So the
It's
True, true.
a very good exercise.
What is the chapter name? Could you
It's a good
just
exercise.
Kartik?
Yeah. So this is arriving at self knowledge.
Okay, because I can read it in on the hot copy. Yeah. Bye.
yes, yes,
Sure. It's
and
arriving at self knowledge. It's on page 135 in the physical book. Beautiful the chapter, and it tells you. I mean, I love the analogy, and each one of us can meditate more on this analogy. When I say meditate, I'm just saying dwell on it deeper to see how it could
Yes,
be
yes.
understood
Yes,
at multiple levels. So pumpkin is your identity. Pumpkin is one lifetime to another. So you can look at it in many ways. So each lifetime we identify ourselves so deeply with that, but it's nothing but just a pumpkin around my neck because it's not real. The that's just a passing phase, right? So that's, I mean, it's a very nice chapter.
absolutely,
Yeah,
Karthik, it reminds me that ultimately
it's an
the
eye
pumpkin
opener.
or
It's an eye.
identity is just a scaffolding, or is just you know a scaffolding which we have to get rid of in our journey.
correct.
Nehaji, you're saying something. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, Ashokji, fine, fine.
Okay, so I think we'll stop here at this point, and we will connect back on the next chapter on in our journey, which is uh, of the God theme, which is God realization. So, if you see how we progress, we start with what is the difference between God and the individual, what is perfection, what is the search for God, how it starts, so how the journey starts. From that, you move to the stages of the path. Last week, we saw how there are the seven planes of consciousness. And linked to that is how you reach the destination. These two can be done in any sequence. Now that I read it, it can you can read it in any order. Then finally, you get to God realization, which is the next next week. We'll take it up. So lovely having all of you, and have a great uh, week ahead. And this was the first discourses reading of 2024. May we imbibe more of Baba, may we imbibe more of discourses in our day to day life. And that's the resolution that we need to make as we start the second week of the year. So, all the best to all of you, and Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai Baba.
Baba, thank you. Thank you.
Jai
Thank you.
Baba.
Bye.
Oh, we have
Jai Baba.
Nomita, yes.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba, everybody. Jai Baba.